Hi, Dr. Rodriguez. I will be going over an FIE. This FIE and this data that I will be going over is data that we used and we are using for the annual ARD the annual ARD mock up that we did do. Keep in mind this student is due for reevaluation. We are in the process of reevaluating him already. His reevaluation date is 6/4/2024. We have consent already, and we have started the process of the reevaluation. If I'm not mistaken, we just need to finish the WJ achievement, and then that's it for his reeval. We just need to make the FIE again and stuff like that. So for the reason for the referral, this is dated for 6/24/2021. Reason for the referrals, this is a comprehensive evaluation requested by the Hebronville Elementary School ARD Committee in Jim Hogg County ISD. This evaluation is to assess the extent to which developmental, intellectual, academic, medical, or sociological variables that may be interfering with AJ's educational process and, if eligible, to assist with educational programming. The evaluation results, this comprehension evaluation for AJ was conducted at Jim Hogg County ISD at Hebronville Elementary School. Observations were done when formal standardized assessments were administered to AJ. The current evaluation results are believed to be representative of AJ's intellectual, academic, behavioral, medical, and developmental functioning at this time. AJ was evaluated in his native language, which is English. The test session observations. Observations of AJ's behavior were made during the KBC. His controversial proficiency seemed typical for his age level. He was cooperative throughout the examination, but he was overactive at times for his age, which resulted in difficulty attending to task. He had to be constantly redirected to the task at hand. Although AJ appears at ease and comfortable during some of the examinations, he often seemed distracted. He would respond impulsively and carelessly to tasks he had difficulty remember or understanding directions for, even after examples were reviewed. So there were 3 sources of data used. For the speech and language, the WJ oral language was used. For the cognitive and intellectual, the KBC cross-battery assessment was used. And for the educational and developmental performance, the WJ achievement was used. Based on the home language survey, AJ's primary language is English. Based on teacher input, Ms. Barrera, he showed average receptive and average expressive levels of proficiency. There were no weaknesses indicated by the teacher in the oral language area. Based on information reviewed, AJ expresses himself best orally, and based on the assessment of AJ's language abilities, the remainder of this full individual evaluation was conducted using English. So on the Woodcock-Johnson test of oral language, he was average in oral language, picture vocabulary, oral comprehension. He was average in all the individualized tests that measured for oral language abilities. He was his standard score was classified in the average range. Physical, birth and developmental history. There are birth and developmental. There was a normal birth, no complications during pregnancy. Developmental history. He started babbling at 6 months. Started walking at 11 months. Um, said his first words at a year old. Um, health information based on the nurse Tiffany Forms. Information dated 11/20/2019. The student passed both his vision test without glasses and hearing test unaided. As a result of the screenings, no further evaluation was recommended in this area. Sociological history and background. So AJ lives with his mother and his father. He lives with his brother and sister. His parents are together. As a family, they like to play cards and participate in a lot of outdoor activities. AJ's mom stated that there have been no major changes in the last 3 years. Emotional functioning. AJ's mom stated that AJ is generally well behaved. He has no problem socializing and playing with his brother and sisters and friends. Methods of discipline used at home include taking his phone away, and he's not allowed to go and play outside. Miss Almara stated that she is in the disciplinarian at home. AJ's reaction to discipline is that he gets upset for a little bit and he will always apologize. Teacher information. AJ's general education teacher, Miss Barrera, rated his behavior as well behaved overall in the average range. The following observation of emotional behavior social skills were made by his teacher. Generally cooperates or complies with teacher request, adapts to new situations without getting upset, accepts responsibility for own actions, makes and keeps friends at school, works cooperatively with others, resists becoming discouraged by minor difficulties, has an even, usually happy disposition, brings necessary materials to class, is pleased with good work, responds appropriately to praise and correction, initiates activities independently, and acts silly to get out of doing work, were rated average by Ms. Barrera. The teacher states that AJ is well behaved in class. The only behavior concern she has was that he gets frustrated easily when reading. So overall, AJ's behavior does not impede the student's learning or the learning of others. Students' behaviors across settings do not limit him from following the school's disciplinary rules. AJ's behavior does not appear to interfere with his learning ability. So for the cognitive, intellectual, formal evaluation, AJ was administered the following subtests, which were the KABC, and the Woodcock-Johnson oral and achievement, and additional intellectual tests which were combined and interpreted using procedures and principles of the CHC cross-battery assessment. The CHC cross-battery approach is grounded in current and research-based evidence on the structure of human cognitive abilities and their interaction with academic abilities, and helps in spelling out guidelines so that assessment can approximate the total range of the broad cognitive abilities more adequately than is usually accomplished by using a single battery of tests. Instead of reliance on a single overall cognitive ability estimate, this approach provides for a careful analysis of cognitive strengths and deficits and allows for focused interventions and accommodations. So on the KABC, he was evaluated by Judith Arredondo, and the evaluation date was 5/25/2021. So for the KABC, the sequential, his standard score was a 68, which was the lower extreme. In the stimulatus, his standard score was a 58, which was lower extreme. In the learning, his standard score was a 67, which is the lower extreme. Planning, it was at the the standard score was 80, so that was below average. His knowledge was at 78, below average, and his FCI sum was a 64, which is the lower extreme. So on the KBC, AJ's overall fluid crystal index shows an overall standard score of 64, which is in the lower extreme range. His short-term memory, long-term retrieval, and visual processing were all in the lower extreme range. His comprehensive knowledge and fluid reasoning were in the below average range. So based on the examiner's observation, some of AJ's scores may have been affected by his attention to task. He lacked focus and concentration and required constant redirection to task at hand. On the cross battery assessment, the crystallized knowledge, the standard score was an 86. The fluid reasoning, an 85. The short-term memory, a 93. Visual processing, 81. Long-term retrieval, 86. Auditory processing, 74. And processing speed, 81. So his crystallized knowledge, fluid reasoning, short-term memory, and long-term retrieval were his strengths, and his visual processing, auditory processing, and processing speed were his weaknesses. So based on the KBC, the Woodcock-Johnson test, and additional assessment subtests were combined and interpreted using procedures and principles of the CHC cross-battery assessment, and due to inconsistencies in 2 of the 7 cognitive areas, additional tests for this cognitive ability had to be administered to determine if long-term retrieval and short-term retrieval were strengths or weaknesses for AJ. Therefore, 1 of the 7 broad cognitive ability measured, AJ's abilities were within normal limits in 4 of the 7 areas. This included comprehensive knowledge, fluid reasoning, short-term memory, and long-term retrieval. Auditory processing, cognitive processing speed, and visual processing were defined as weaknesses. His adaptive behavior. Based on TA policy and procedures, adaptive behavior is the effectiveness or degree to which an individual meets the standards of personal independence and social responsibility expected for his age and cultural group, both in school and away from school. So, based on the information from the classroom teacher, Ms. Barrera, the following observation of adaptive behavior functioning for AJ were... his language was rated average, motor skills, socialization, physical development, self-direction, and responsibility were rated average as well. On the educational and developmental performance, AJ was tested with the WJ achievement. So, he displayed where is it? Okay. For written expression and reading fluency, he showed weaknesses. His standard score for the written expression was less than 40. And his standard score for reading fluency was a 54. Everything else was below average to average, but there was more below average. So on the reading fluency, AJ's oral and silent reading fluency are below those of the average individual at age 2 years and 7 months. His reading fluency standard score is in the very low range. His standard score of 54. His oral and silent sentence reading fluency are extremely limited. He will probably find it virtually impossible to succeed on age level tasks requiring fluid reading. And written expression measured AJ's fluency of production and quality of expressing in writing. AJ's written expression ability is comparable to that of the average individual at age 4 years and 10 months. His written expression standard score is in the very low range. The standard score was less than 40. His quality of written sentences and fluency in writing sentences are extremely limited. He'll probably find it virtually impossible to succeed on H-level tasks requiring the effective and fluent production of written sentences. So the need for assistive technology was assessed using informal measures. Recommendations were AJ cannot complete instructional tasks and meet IEP goals with accommodations/modifications in place. So summary of assistive technology performance based on the information provided above. The student does need assistive technology devices. A referral is needed for further assessment. Based on the full initial individual evaluation, AJ will use the following as part of assistive technology needs. Graphic organizers, text-to-speech, picture supports to write from/about, word cards, word banks, word walls, written templates and guides, word prediction software, highlighters, and sticky notes. So the summary and conclusion, ultimately it is the ARD committee who will have to decide on what eligibility will meet AJ's individual needs. So specific learning disability, he in the PWS model, in which AJ must exhibit a pattern of strength and weaknesses in performance, achievement, or both relative to age, grade level standards, or intellectual ability as indicated by significant variances among specific areas of cognitive function, such as working memory and verbal comprehension, or between specific areas of cognitive function and academic achievement. In order for AJ to qualify for special education under the specific learning disability category, the PSW model includes 5 main points, and all 5 criteria must be met. So 1, identification of a normative weakness in an area of academic achievement. So based on the Woodcock-Johnson test of achievement, AJ has had normative weaknesses in 4 of the 8, but his main weaknesses included reading fluency and written expression, identification of a deficit in an area of cognitive processing. So AJ was identified with cognitive weaknesses in 3 of the 7 areas, including auditory processing, visual processing, and cognitive processing speed. Cognitive functioning is otherwise within normal limits. Based on his assessment results, AJ's fluid crystallized index standard score of 64 on the KABC is within well below average range. Cognitive functioning is otherwise within normal limits. So AJ's cognitive functioning is otherwise within normal limits. Exclusionary factors are not the primary cause of either the academic or cognitive deficits. So exclusionary factors include visual, hearing, or motor abilities, intellectual disability, emotional disturbance, cultural factors, environmental or economic disadvantage, limited English proficient, limited school experience, poor school attendance, or lack of appropriate instruction in reading or math. So exclusionary factors were also rolled out as a primary cause for AJ's academic and cognitive deficits. And 5, there is a research-based consistency between the cognitive and academic weaknesses. So empirical and logical links between his cognitive disorders and his areas of academic deficits were also noted. So AJ was identified with weaknesses, and all these areas therefore have a significant relationship to the cognitive abilities. Um, so he did have weaknesses cognitively. His auditory processing, which was the phonological awareness processing, is very important to reading achievement or reading development, and is also very important for both writing skills and written expression. So that is why his standard score was so low with the reading fluency and the written expression, because his auditory processing was weak. His visual processing was weak as well. His cognitive processing speed was weak. Slow processing speed may impact upon reasoning skills, since the basic rapid process of symbols, such as letters, is often necessary for fluent reading, is also important. So from his cognitive processing speed being a weakness, that also ties into his reading fluency and written expression. He's not rapid enough to process symbols such as his letters when he's writing, and for fluent reading. So based on those cognitive deficits, there was a consistency between the cognitive and academic weaknesses. So in conclusion, AJ did meet he does identify as a student with a specific learning disability, as identified by the pattern of strengths and weaknesses model. Therefore, AJ met federal guidelines as a student with specific learning disabilities, and all information indicates that AJ shows a need for special education services and or related services. So this was in May of 2021, the testing. The report was done in 6 of 2021. Based on this FIE, this is what we are going off of for this annual ARD Mock Up that you will be seeing. So just to summarize it, AJ is a 4th grade student now. He does meet eligibility as a student with specific learning disabilities in the areas of written expression and reading fluency. He did show cognitive and academic weaknesses that were consistent with each other. And he is up for a reevaluation, and that reevaluation and FIE will be done by 6/4 of 2024.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Miss Ibanez, and I am the principal here at the elementary school. We're meeting today to have an annual ARD for AJ Almaraz, and he's a 4th grade student. Before we begin, I'm going to have everybody go ahead and introduce themselves.
I'm Allison Almaraz, the educational diagnostician.
I'm Monica Silva, the general education teacher.
I'm Rose Benavides, the special education teacher.
And then your mom, right?
Yes, nice to meet you.
So I'm going to go ahead and start off by reading a statement that we start all the ARDs with. It's called the Statement of Confidentiality and Conduct. All information concerning a student with disabilities is confidential and may not be discussed with anyone except those who have a legitimate educational interest in the student with disabilities. Consistent with school board policy, persons participating in the ARD meeting will refrain from making any personal attacks on school staff, students, or parents. All participants are expected to speak in a courteous manner and in a conversational tone. The expectations must be followed in order to facilitate a safe and collaborative environment focused on the development of appropriate educational plans for this student. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start off today by having the diagnostician just review some information on AJ.
Okay, so AJ's primary disability is specific learning disability, with the areas of specific learning disability being written expression and reading fluency skills. He is due for, okay, so his full and individual evaluation, his report date is June 4th, 2021, and his re-evaluation is due by June 4th, 2024. I know we have met to start his re-evaluation process, and so that has started.
So just so you know, that remember that every 3 years we do reevaluate the students, so that's what the process of that has already begun. So now that we went through that information, we're going to go ahead and have our special education teacher review AJ's PLAF, and that's just how he's doing in his classes as of right now.
Okay, Mom, so right now, the information that I gathered from the general education teachers, he did score 31% on his first benchmark and did drop down to a 24% on his second benchmark. He's showing areas of strength in knowing place value to the 10,000s. He knows decimal place value. He can order from least to greatest. He understands financial terms and can round to the nearest 100. Also, he can subtract and add up to 3-digit numbers without regrouping, and he knows his multiplication by basic facts up to 12s as well. Some areas of need that he has, or that they have, told me, is solving word problems, reading a graph, and being able to subtract 3-digit by 2-digit numbers as well. And then for his reading, they've also, on his first benchmark, he had a 29%, and then on his second benchmark, he had a 25%, okay? On his Star Renaissance, he's currently, though, at a reading level of a 2.1. He does show strength in knowing his uppercase and lowercase letters. He listens to a story and is able to print his name. AJ shows areas of need in consonant sounds and vowel sounds, as well as attacking words phonetically and reading a story quietly using context clues and answering factual questions. And in addition to that, he does need help applying punctuation rules and identifying parts of speech. Okay.
So Ms. Silva is one of his general education teachers, so I'm going to have her just review how he's doing in the classroom as well.
Okay. Hi. He's doing well. I know we've spoken before on his progress and how he's doing, but he's doing really good. He follows the directions. He was having a little bit of difficulty with his spelling words, but one of his accommodations is to modify and to give him a shortened list. So we, instead of doing 20 words, we're doing 10, and that seems to have helped him. And when he needs help, he asks for help. He gets along with everyone else really well, and that extra time also is helping him. So overall, he's doing well. Good.
Okay, so the next part is just his behavior, and from what we've heard from all the information, he's doing well in that area. There are no behavior concerns, and he does not have a behavior intervention plan. At this time, Mom, do you have any information that you would like to review with us, or any questions or concerns so far?
No, I feel like he's doing well.
So the next part we're going to review is going to be his IEP goals, and to see if we're just going to review his progress on his goals so far.
Okay, so he does have a goal for ELAR. By next annual ARD, AJ will be able to find text evidence to help answer comprehension questions. Success will be measured using daily work, observations, and tests at a rate of 70%, Mom. And then this progress report, you will receive it concurrently with his actual report card. So that will also be updated every 6 weeks. And then, of course, I do speak with you throughout the 6 weeks with any issues or any other progress that is going on between the first progress report and the second progress report. So we're good there.
Good.
Did you have any questions about his goals or how he's progressing with his goals?
No, everything's good.
So the next area we will review is called his schedule of services, and this is just the services that he's going to be receiving in the classroom. And we will have the special education teacher review that as well.
Okay, so then, right now, he is receiving in-class support for ELAR. He does have 2 reading classes that are each 50 minutes long, so, we decided, well, as from last year up until this year, he was receiving total support in there, so 100 minutes for each of those, for ELAR. So 100 minutes one time a day, so he does have paraprofessional support within both classes. Okay? And that's his only schedule of service that he's receiving through special education.
Okay, at this time, we're gonna have the diagnostician review all his accommodations that he's receiving in the classroom.
Okay, so for accommodations in the classroom, he is allowed extra time for oral response to allow student time to formulate thoughts. Ask student to repeat, check for understanding, check for comprehension after group directions are given, copies of notes, electronic dictionaries, extra time, in-class support, positive reinforcers, reduced and shortened assignments, text to speech, speech to text. Teacher provides visual aids, supplemental aids, and content and language support. And that is it for his in-class accommodations. Are you okay with those?
Yes.
Is everyone in agreement with those accommodations to continue?
I think they are helping him out in the classroom.
Okay, as far as related services, is he receiving any other related services?
No.
Okay. So he is a 4th grader, so he will be having to take the STAR test this year. And as a student in the special education program and receiving services, he will also receive some accommodations to help him during the STAR test. So we're gonna go ahead and review those next. He'll be taking the regular STAR just like everybody else, but he'll have some accommodations to go along with him.
So last year, AJ, in the reading STAR, he did pass. He met approaches, and for the math STAR, he did not meet. Accommodations that we can provide to him. These are what were provided for him last year. We could add accommodations, we could take away, but for reading, he will have content and language support, text to speech, speech to text, supplemental aids, spelling assistance with word prediction software, small group administration, various types of highlighters, colored pencils, or any other tool that can be used to focus attention on text. And read text aloud to self. That's for reading. And for math, he will have text to speech, content and language support, supplemental aids, small group administration, various types of highlighters, colored pencils, or any other tools that can be used to focus on text, and that's it. Are you okay with those?
Yes.
Do you feel like we should add, take away from these accommodations? No. Okay. Teachers? Okay.
I've been working with them.
He will be taking the STAR test online this year, just like all the other students. Now, since he did not pass his math test last school year, we did implement what's called an intensive plan of intervention, and it's just that we're providing him with the extra support he needs to hopefully be successful this year on the math test. And that's being done during enrichment time during the school day. Okay, so he is in the general ed classroom with just inclusion support, so that is the least restrictive area. We want to make sure that he is with his peers and along with other students that do not have disabilities, and it's called the least restrictive area, so we are making sure of that. Now, we also do offer extended school year, but that is more for students who are not progressing with their goals, and he has not shown any regression. He's been doing well in all his classes, so as a committee, do we want to recommend him for that extended school year, or we think he is progressing well?
I think he's progressing well, yes. He hasn't shown any regression.
Can you pause it? Okay, so the committee agrees that we will not recommend any extended year services. So, were there any other concerns, or did anybody else have anything else that they wanted to mention about AJ?
I do have a concern. Mom, I've noticed that his handwriting, he's showing a little bit of frustration. At times he'll stop and he does not want to complete his work. It's really difficult to understand his writing. He can write his name, but it's hard for, I've noticed it's hard for him to stay within the margins, and that may impede like his performance. I don't know if you've seen that at home when he's doing his homework.
Actually, now that you mention it, I have. When we're working on homework together, he tends to get easily frustrated, and he gets mad at himself and starts, second guessing if he can do the work or not. And I have noticed it.
I don't know if it's something that.
Okay, so as a committee, we can agree, if you would like for him to get referred to have an occupational therapy evaluation.
Okay.
Is everyone in agreement with that?
And how long does that take?
So after getting consent, it will take 45 school days to happen. It's a process. And then since we are already April, we probably won't meet back till the beginning of the school year. So his services, if he were to meet eligibility, they would start in the beginning of next school year.
And those services would be
they will have
school,
yes.
Or,
so
okay.
The occupational therapist will come, and he will get pulled out for. It depends. Everyone depending on what the occupational therapist feels would benefit him. It could be 3 times a week, 6 weeks for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just depending on what they feel he would need.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure, we can go ahead. And
Okay, I'll go ahead and get consent in a bit.
Okay.
And then she'll contact you, and she'll do the evaluation here at school. You won't have
great.
to take him anywhere. Everything will be done here at school. And then if he does qualify, she'll develop her own goals for him, and she'll review those at the meeting as well.
Perfect.
So it does take 45 school days for that to happen, and then we'll come back to ARD once that's complete.
Okay.
Okay, so is everybody in agreement for the occupational therapy evaluation?
Yes.
Okay. So if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and review the assurances, and then there's some other paperwork we will have to confirm with you. So the IEP committee assures that the student is being educated with the student his or her age who do not have disabilities to the maximum extent appropriate to his or her overall educational needs, including academic and developmental areas such as language and socialization. So that's when we discussed with you that we have him in his least restrictive environment, so he's still in the general ed classroom, but he does receive in-class support. The committee assures that all instructional and related services specified in the IEP will be provided to the student at no cost. Fees normally charged to the students without disabilities or their parents as part of the general education program may be charged, i.e. such as art or laboratory fees. So that's like his occupational therapy, we're not going to charge you for that. It's going to be done all based on our employees here.
Okay.
The only fees that we'll charge is, like, for example, if they're going to go on a field trip and all the other students are paying, you would have to pay for that as well.
Okay.
The district assures that each teacher who provides instruction to a student with disabilities will receive relevant sections of the student's current IEP, and that each teacher will be informed of specific responsibilities related to the implementing the IEP, such as goals and benchmarks, and of needed accommodations, modifications, and or supports for the child. So that just means that we will provide copies to everybody who will be working with AJ so that they know what kind of accommodations he needs. And that will usually be his general ed teacher and his special education teacher, who is his case manager, and also the counselor who provides the accommodations for the STAR test. Okay, so we will pass around the IEP documentation to be signed, but I'll let the diagnostician go over the paperwork she needs to have.
So everyone was in agreement with everything that was discussed today?
Yes.
Okay.
So the procedural safeguards will be first.
Okay, so here are your procedural safeguards. I will need your signature right here. Everything's electronic now.
Okay.
And these are an explanation of your legal rights as a parent with a student with special needs. If you have any further questions, concerns, or clarifications, you can contact the SPED office, okay? So just go ahead and sign right here that you've been given it. Okay. Thank you. The prior written notice. This is also electronic. Okay, so for your prior written notice, I will need your signature right here. And this is just the purpose of the prior written notice is to ensure that we're letting you know with all relevant information so that you're fully informed about the actions related to special education identification, evaluation, services, and placement to the LEA and have proposed or refused to provide, okay?
Okay.
So in the ARD, we reviewed AJ's accommodations, state and district accommodations as well. The teacher did give some concerns, and you did as well, about his motor skills. So the ARD committee did agree for an occupational therapy evaluation due to the fine motor skills that y'all are seeing him have difficulty with. So if you could just go ahead and sign, and the 5-day waiver also, it's just saying I agree to waive the 5 school days waiting period between the prior written notice and the proposed or refused action. So this is just saying that we don't have to wait the 5 days to start accommodations. We could go ahead and start today, tomorrow, the day that we date the IEP.
Okay.
Okay, do you have any questions on this?
No.
No? Okay. Next, I do need signature. This is for the SHARs. This is just saying that you are okay with us billing Medicaid or whatever insurance you do have to try to get some reimbursement for services, okay?
Okay.
It does not affect your benefits whatsoever.
Okay.
Okay. And then the ARD committee did discuss getting AJ evaluated for occupational therapy. So I do need to get your consent for that. So right here, I have fully been informed of all information relevant to the evaluation in my native language or other mode of communication. So you would just put yes or no. I understand that granting of consent is voluntary on my part and may be revoked at any time. You can put yes or no. I understand that if I revoke consent, revocation is not retroactive, therefore it does not negate an action that has occurred after consent was given and before consent was revoked. Okay. So now that we do have consent, we can try to, we have 45 school days to get the evaluation completed and 30 calendar days to go to ARD to see if he will be eligible for occupational therapy services. Do you have any questions?
Will the person evaluating him be the same person to provide the services for him?
Okay, so the person evaluating him may or may not be the one to provide services. They do have assistants that do help provide services.
Okay. And how often will I know how well he's doing? If he's progressing? Or?
So if he does meet eligibility for occupational therapy, we do progress every 6 weeks. So when you get your child's report card, we do progress on there as well, on whatever goals that are made for him for occupational therapy. So do you have any other questions?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Okay, so I did get your signature on the IEP. I got your signature for the prior written notice, the 5-day waiver, the notice of consent to bill for SHARs. I got your consent for occupational therapy evaluation. So now, we do have this sped tech. You will get your camera and place it on this QR code, and a little yellow link will pop up. You'll click on it, and it will take you directly to this website, and it will answer any questions you may have. There's also this number right here. If you feel like there was not a question I answered for you correctly, or if you wanted more, your answer more in depth, they would be able to help you. And this also will help you if you need someone like for advocacy or something.
Okay.
So I did get your consent for occupational therapy evaluation. So he was referred during this ARD. The committee agreed based on yours and your and the teacher's concerns. I did get your consent for evaluation. So now the occupational therapist has the 45 days, school days to get the evaluation done, and then we will meet to determine eligibility. If he does meet eligibility, we will incorporate it into the IEP. Okay. Services. Do you have any questions or
Will
concerns?
they let me know when he's going to be evaluated, like the day of, or how does that work?
So we really don't let the parents know when evaluation is happening, but it could happen anytime from here till the 45 calendar days. You did waive the 5 days, so evaluation could happen as soon as tomorrow. But you can also call the SPED office to be asking, like, has the evaluation been done? Where are we in our timeline? And we can answer those questions for you.
Okay.
Okay.
And say he does qualify for the services, when do those services take place? Is he going to be pulled out of his class? Is it something that's done after school?
Okay, so if he does meet eligibility for occupational therapy, it usually is, those services usually take place during the school day. So they do try to pull them out of class during like an elective. So like if he's in library or in lab or in art, they try to pull them out during those times so they don't miss out on instructional time for reading and math and science and the main subject areas. Okay. Do you have any other questions?
How long do those services usually take? Is it something that'll be with him for the rest of his life? Is it just for this year?
So if the occupational therapist feels like he's meeting all his goals, his fine motor skills have increased dramatically, and he feels like they don't need the services anymore, we could come back to ARD, and if everyone agrees, he could be dismissed from receiving occupational therapy services. Okay. So do you have any other questions?
No.
Concerns, comments? No? Okay. So if you think of any questions, you could go ahead and reach me at the SPED office, 361-527-3203, and you could just ask for me and I could answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
Okay?
That's good.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.